Jumbo, fellow adventurers, Mike Dooley here. Time for a spiritual tune-up where overall I'm reminding you that your thoughts become things. Thanks for all the great questions. Post them today on Facebook or Instagram below, and they could be my talking points in the days ahead. This great question, on the heels of last week's theme about living deliberately, manifesting with intention, is a question pertaining to pregnancy. Mike, not pregnant. Why? My fault? Divine timing? In depth. I've been trying to conceive for 8 months with a little help from hormones in the hospital. My gynecologist says everything looks good. So I've basically had 8 chances, but no pregnancy yet. I know it may take longer, but I'm getting fears that this is my own fault because of bad emotions. Oh my goodness. Want to give you a big hug. It's going to be okay. Not that my life is any indication of anybody else's life, but clearly, if you know my story, I'm a very late blooming first-time dad with a 7-year-old, and it was years of trying to make it happen with my wife before it happened. And for my sister, if I can bring her into this equation, I think it was 9, 10, 11 years before there was a natural pregnancy. And so to put the question of cause or alarm and associate it with a few months is really not being very kind to yourself, not taking into account so much. But there are some very deep layers here, and there is application to this kind of question to almost all of our lives. When we want something that hasn't manifest, what to make of it? Is it my fault? Is it the universe's timing? What's going on? How do I make sense of it? Do I need corrective measures? Do I need to chill out? Okay, so that's what the rest of this question is all about. First off, do not look to circumstances, which is the things of time, space, matter, in motion, circumstances. Do not look to circumstances to draw conclusions. Circumstances tell you zero about underlying reasons and rationale, purpose and order. Circumstances don't reveal any of that. But when circumstances are not to your liking, or they're not what you would have wanted, that is simply and only an invitation to consider more than you've been considering. How else could I see this? What else might be playing out? What are my other priorities? Maybe do I have some conflicts? I want this, but not that, that, but not this. Maybe some of my desires are mutually exclusive. And not necessarily do those apply. Just because you want something, whether it's a pregnancy or a new car, that has not yet shown up, whether it's been days or years, does not mean something's wrong. It does not even mean you have a conflict. It certainly does not mean that there's a block necessarily. As soon as you jump to those conclusions, you're on a slippery slope, and now you're going to be creating issues that didn't exist on top of whatever the other original delay was all about. And that original delay maybe would have ended the next day. But because you've labeled yourself as broken, bad, whatever, now next day isn't possible. It might take another year, 5 years, might not even be in the cards anymore. So let me give you a couple of things to think about as well. Fault. Is it my fault? It is never your fault. Nothing is your fault. We're all doing the best we can. Fault is a word that does not belong in any spiritually enlightened conversation. Fault is like the word blame. Okay, forget blame, forget fault. Yes, we could always point to a certain sequence, depending on where you started exploring that sequence and say, oh, this person made such and such happen. But if you went a little bit earlier in time, there was some other happening, occurrence, conversation, epiphany that showed up. And if you went there, you'd blame someone else. If you went earlier in time than that, there would be past life. It would be other misunderstandings. Some people might call it karma, which is not as powerful as we generally think. But you could always find somebody different at fault, depending on where you look at the conflict in the Middle East. You know, what comes to mind right away, Israel and the Palestinians. no matter how far you go back, it's going to be somebody else's fault. Stop going back. Stop looking for faults. Start dealing with what's in front of you right now. Go within. Use love to guide your way. This is a little bit off topic, but the same is true for getting pregnant. The same is true for your career or relationships or health and healing. Fault is a faulty word. It is wrong. It is broken. It implies things that take you off track and remove you from truth. So is it my fault? No, it is not your fault. That doesn't mean we can't go within and ask some questions, but fault implies things that are totally wrong. The other possibility, as the framer of this question went, could this be the universe's timing? In the truest sense, there is no universe's timing. Zero. That would imply a power outside of yourself. The universe's timing was to be you. Okay, now it's like sitting back, eating popcorn, saying, oh, just show me what's next. Your life is amazing. You're so cool. I'm so glad I made this choice to be you. And then you want things to change. Well, okay, there are 60,000 thoughts a day. Now that makes it more complicated than it really is. Maybe not. You have an invisible limiting belief. There's a lot of ways around that without understanding or nailing what that invisible limiting belief is. Maybe you have other priorities. Maybe it's your parents and they're about to get sick and you can't see that consciously, but at a deeper level, this is what part of your energy is preparing for. And so there's so many things going on. And if you go to something just enormously, gigantically awesome and wonderful, like having a baby, oh my gosh, you want that to play out in the right time in connection with all of the other wonderful things that are going to be happening in your life. Right? And in the life of your partner. And in the evolution of what's happening on planet Earth. And there's so many things. And divine intelligence totally has it. Not basing the timing of it on divine intelligence, but your higher self, divine intelligence, is taking into account all that you want and all that you've decided and where all of your priorities are. So ultimately, it is always your timing. Not the universe's. Because if you feel like, well, this is what I want and my partner want, but it hasn't happened, so it's on the universe. It's like it's not on the universe. Your collective energies, including that mixed with 8 billion co-creators, is going into like this funnel, and the perfect, most ideal timing is being calculated. Not taking your power away from you, but this is where your power lies. And it's your intentions and your desires and your joy that's going to compute when the baby comes. And so to say, oh, it's the universe's timing removes you way too far from the equation where you're smack dab in the center of that equation. So it's not fair to say it's the universe's timing. Yet, maybe I'm splitting hairs. We do get that there's a lot of other things happening. And so you might use those words, but hopefully not give your power away at the same exact time. In the meantime, okay, enjoy your amazing life. Presumably you're at a childbearing age. There's a lot of other opportunities. There's love. There's romance. It sounds like you and your partner are working on this. So many other things are lining up for you right now. Whether it's career or passion or being of service or exploration or discovery or travel. Like my mom used to tell me when I was single and desperate and dateless for decades, with not a total drought. But she would say, enjoy this time because the day will be here when you're married and the day will be here when you have kids, which was so far from my mind. It was like, oh my God, that would be nice, but it seemed impossible to comprehend. She said, that's all coming. And then when that comes, you're not going to have the freedom you have today. You're not going to have the options you have today. And when the wife appeared and the baby appeared, I don't even want those options anymore. But she was right. Back then, I did have the opportunity to savor my freedom, to enjoy travel, and to expand other areas of my life. So in the meantime, as you're working on getting pregnant, I mean, just continue to bloom in every other area of your life as you grow, as you expand, as you learn. You'll be an even more amazing parent with even more stability than you can now imagine, which may serve you in ways you can't quite see right now because we have these blinders on. You know, we're wired to the illusions, and we don't know where the trends are going and what else is going to play out in a global scale, pandemically, economically, politically. So it hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it's not happening tonight. Doesn't mean it's not happening tomorrow. Enjoy your life. Play both ends to the middle. Continue to see your doctor. I don't know that I would, worry about trying to stoke the flames too much. It's working out fantastic. You have every reason to be happy, even if you're afraid right now. That's not going to slow you down. That's not going to stop your pregnancy. That's not going to derail anything. It might be another 8 months. It might be another 4.5 years. When the time comes and you see the perfection, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it worked out so amazingly. I couldn't see it back then, but now I can see it. Hallelujah. Know that. Know that. Play both ends to the middle. Get ready. I used to go buy little girl dresses, anticipating a daughter one day, when it just seemed like it wasn't going to happen in my lifetime. I was married. We were trying. It was years. And so I would do a little woo-woo and I would visualize, but I also worked on my career. I also worked on enjoying time with my girlfriend, then fiance, then marriage, and it all worked out so well. And then, of course, you do the best you can with what you've got from where you are. So one day at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time, and you're always making decisions based on circumstances that are prevalent now. So now it should just be about make hay, have fun, make love. It's beautiful. If in 20 years from now or in 9 years from now, you feel like it's time to consider adoption, oh my gosh, my sister also adopted. And it was the most amazing, miraculous, wonderful thing that ever happened in any of our family's life. And no less spiritual, no less divine, no less anything than a flesh and blood offspring. And so there's even those options, but that's way too far down the road for you to look at right now, given my sense of where you're at. But one day at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 decade at a time, you decide, consider all options. Don't be afraid. Don't put yourself in a box. Don't feel limited. Enjoy your amazing gift of life, and that you have love and that you have infinite possibilities before you. Oh, it's so good to be you right now. My gosh. And it's so good to be all of us. I think we're the luckiest people alive so far. And I hope you all have an amazing week. Have the best Monday of your life so far. Thanks for the great comments I'm getting on the podcast. I do have a podcast that twice a week drops about a 45-minute to an hour-long installment. They are collections of earlier tune-ups that have been spliced together, so you don't have to be at Facebook or Instagram at the same time every day or surfing around looking for these. And there's also some special interviews and presentations of mine that are also included in the podcast. So if you haven't checked out my podcast yet, check out the link below on Facebook, swipe up on Instagram. See you there. Please post these amazing questions. Keep them coming. We're at like number 380 right now. I don't know how many tune-ups I've done, but I'm honored to be of service. I'm doing the best I can. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right, on Facebook, who do we have? We have Judith, and we have Marianne, and we have Teresa and Jenna. And on Instagram, Mandy, thanks for being here. Minak, glad you're here. This Celine, and okay, Animal Reiki Lady. All right, hasta pronto, hasta mañana, te amo.